It's now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by a few things. Title Bout Championship computer game. If you're looking for that simulation game, look no further than Title Bout. Check out our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the banner. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by SouthernGourmetSpice.com. If you're looking for the best barbecue rub and seasoned salt, and my favorite, the blackened seasoning, check out SouthernGourmetSpice.com. And finally, today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Men on the Planet. It's available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just visit BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon.com. Joining us in a little bit, we got Dax Khan coming up, and also my main man, Alex Papali. We're going to talk about a few things today. First and foremost, Demetrius Andrade won a unanimous decision when he defended his WBO middleweight title last night at the Hard Rock in Hollywood, not California. Hollywood, Florida. Yeah, it was in Florida, man. And it was a one-sided fight, except I tell you something. The one thing, Demetrius Andrade, in my opinion, is a very talented fighter. But for some reason, he's just not exciting to watch at all. Normally, he's boring. He was a little more exciting last night against Williams. But again, he's the big fight has eluded him, and you can see why. I mean, look, he's got hand speed, he's got power. He was a little more aggressive last night against Leon Williams. I'm kind of shocked Leon Williams didn't catch up with him. He did stun him a few times, but then again, Williams had no answer for the uppercut. Boo Andrade seemed to land it at will. The way the judges scored it was pretty much one-sided. Two of the judges had it 118-109. The third had it 116-111. Demetrius dropped Leon Williams early in the fight, but he recovered from that. It was the second round with basically, Andrade landed some other punches that seemed to be more powerful than the classic 1-2 that dropped Williams in the second round. And it also seemed like he wasn't really paying attention to the count, because when the referee got to 9, he kind of jumped up. It was like, oh shit, he's at 9. But the truth of the matter I think Williams. This is the problem. Look, boys and girls, this is the problem with the sanctioning bodies. Williams was a mandatory for Andrade. It was a payday for Andrade, but it was a little tougher than he thought. Williams, give him all the credit in the world. He's a tough fighter. He drops to 23 wins, 3 losses, and a draw. Demetrius Andrade is still undefeated at 30-0 with 18 knockouts. My one comment on this fight was the simple fact that I thought the referee was extremely one-sided. He was clearly biased and rooting for Andrade. I mean, Andrade was holding Leon Williams, I thought, more than Williams was holding Andrade. Williams held Andrade when he was stunned a couple of times during the fight, but Andrade seemed to be holding Williams more, and the referee kept pretty much yelling at Leon Williams. Where do the fighters go from here? Well, I tell you the truth, I have no problem seeing Leon Williams go back to the drawing board and try and make another run at a world title shot. This was his first. Demetrius Andrade, he needs a big fight, man. He needs to fight somebody that's known. The guy that comes to mind for me, even though I haven't been that keen on him ever is Keith Thurman. I would love to see Keith Thurman fight Demetrius Andrade, or I don't know. There's some other fighters out there that I would like to see him fight. Keith Thurman, for some reason, pops into my head right away when I think of Demetrius Andrade. Maybe because their styles are similar, but some other. I mean, they were talking about Triple G possibly fighting him, or him trying to get a fight with Triple G. Triple G, he's been there, done that. How much more do we expect out of Triple G? I mean, truthfully, how much more do we expect out of him? I just think that he's a kind of a guy that we've seen the best, and I don't know how much more we have to see of him, to be honest with you. A catchweight type of a fight, Sean Porter or Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford against Demetrius Andrade. I mean, it did come in at 159. I know those are welterweight names I just shot out, but it looks like Errol Spence. Listen, I could see where Errol Spence could come down to come up to 154, and Demetrius Andrade was a champ at 154. That would be a nice fight to see. I mean, Demetrius Andrade needs a big fight. I don't know who's out there. I don't know any dance partners for him. They say Triple G. I mean, obviously, Canelo Alvarez is campaigning at super middle now. I don't see Andrade standing a chance with him. I mean, just for argument's sake, let's see. I have the rankings here for middleweight. When you look at other fights for him, Jamie Mugaya would be decent. Listen, the Charlo brothers. I think the Charlo brothers are overrated. Hey, that's a good fight. How about Jamal Charlo against Demetrius Andrade? How about that? How about even a Chris Eubank Jr. Against him? Two fighters that you could ask to make a fight, and I guess Triple G, if he's still gonna campaign and fight. I just the best of Triple G is behind him. I see him. I just don't see him up there the way he was. Could he beat Demetrius Andrade? I think so. I think a good body work guy would slow down Demetrius Andrade, and that's that. The other thing is that uppercut that he was landed on Leon Williams was pretty sneaky, but Williams had his hands up. He had his hands up, and Andrade still was getting through. So I got to give him some credit on that for sure. Some other things I wanted to talk about real quick, and we'll get to these. We'll be talking about more of these when Dax comes on, and also when Alex comes on. But last week we had a pretty entertaining fight. I mean, what a light heavyweight fight to watch. Joe Smith Jr. Took a majority decision over Maxim Vlasov last week in a WBO light heavyweight title. It was for the vacant title. 114 was the way one judge scored it, and the other two had it 115. One had it 115, 113. The other had it 115, 112. It was a tough fight to score. I don't disagree with Smith winning. I wouldn't have disagreed if they gave it to Vlasov. And I certainly didn't disagree with the even score, 114. I thought it was an entertaining fight. Vlasov seemed to land more punches. He seemed to lose some pop out of him. There were definitely some rounds where Smith just lost flat out. But the kid has heart. Smith has heart. Clearly has punching power. I love the fight. I mean, to tell you the truth, I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch of that fight. I know Smith has had a pretty, I would say, blue collar type career, and I think that's why people like him so much. He's never out of a fight because of his pop, but he's not exactly the smoothest boxer. I thought Vlasov clearly was the better boxer, but didn't have enough pop. Smith also was much bigger. Loved the fight. If you missed it, pop that one up. In the heavyweight division on that card, also a top 12 ranked heavyweight, Effie Algeba, improved to 15-0 with 12 knockouts when he took care of Brian Howard, knocked him out viciously in the third round. And I love this. Gerard the Real Baby Anderson improved to 9-0 with 9 knockouts when he knocked out Jeremiah Carpensy. I don't know how much you want to really put some emphasis on this win for Anderson. He's maintained his 9-win all by knockout resume. But Carpensy, although his record may look like he's a real good fighter, not so much. But a good fight for Anderson in his 9th professional fight. It looked good on paper. The other fight that I wanted to mention was Conor Benn improved to 18-0 with 12 knockouts when he beat Samuel Vargas in London. 80 seconds is what it took for him to win that fight. He's ranked in the top 15 by 2 of the major sanctioning bodies. And Samuel Vargas is a tough guy. He dropped to 31-7. Obviously, he complained of the stoppage, but I think it was justifiable. So some fights that took place last week that we didn't get a chance to talk about. Another thing that I'm going to talk about with the guys when they come on is the WBC announced that they're doing a 115-pound tournament, and it's going to feature obviously the top 4 fighters in that weight class. Roman Gonzalez against Juan Francisco Estrada will be one of the matchups. The rematch of that fight would actually be the third one that those two have gone at it, and the first 2 were great, and I wouldn't expect anything less. I kind of thought Roman Gonzalez squeaked by that last fight against Estrada, although Estrada came on strong in the second half of the fight. I don't know. I would have been happy with a draw there, but Surskat Sung Rungsgavai, and I know I just murdered his name, against Carlos Cudras. That's the second fight of the 4-fighter tournament, and then the 2 winners would fight each other. I like it. I think it's definitely putting the top 4 115-pounders together and battling it out. One other thing I'll mention real quickly is the fight that we've all been talking about, Anthony Joshua against Tyson Fury, a heavyweight unification fight. They claim that it's been signed, sealed, and delivered. There has been some talk about where the fight will be. Well, apparently that fight should be finalized, or at least we talk a little more about it. Offers. This is why this is where I just feel that it's BS sometimes with fights. I think that this particular fight is. I think they're going to run into some snags with it. I just, I think that we're going to see some roadblocks, so to speak, with this fight. We shouldn't, but I believe we will. They're saying that they have people that have put in big bids, and who knows where it's going to go. I just think that there's going to be some problems. I just think that we're going to end up with some stumbling blocks with the fight. So I don't know. Hopefully we won't. But only time will tell with that. But anyway, let me take a short break, and when I come back, I should have Dax Khan on the show. So don't go anywhere.
Billy C will be right back. Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at...
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademark fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man. www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com, and tell them Billy C sent ya.
In the country, Talk Boxing with Billy. So I invite each and every American that's listening to this great show to tune in, because we want you to be there with Billy and me.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C, damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C Show. Glad you could be with us. And you know something? I can't stand the bullshit that you go through with signing into stuff. Don't you? I don't know about you, but why do you got to change your fucking password 100 times? And why can't you, all of a sudden just go with the same password? Why did the security? Oh no, you can't use that one. You used that one in the last year or so. You can't use that. That's too much like your other one. It's like give me a fucking break. Here I am trying to log in, trying to get my man Dax on the phone, right? But no, you can't do that because it's a pain in the ass. It's like oh no, we want to make sure it's you. We want to make sure it's you. Yeah, well, no. Who else wants to log into my account? I mean, is it that bad? Are you as much sick of the censoring and the bullshit that we're going on right now? I hate to go off on down a different path, but we try to coordinate stuff. We try to do timing. You think I want to take a commercial break? I don't want to take a fucking commercial break. I want to go to my man Dax. And, I can't even do it because I got to change friggin' passwords. I'm lucky I remember my last goddamn password. Anyway, hey, listen, you know what I do remember? Is I remember that Kenny Bear's barbecue rub is the bomb. Get yourself a bottle right now. Visit southerngourmetspice.com. Make sure you tell them Billy C sent you. And I told you guys, my new favorite is the Cajun blackened season. Oh, man, it's great stuff. But anyway, joining me right now is my man, Dax Khan. What's up, Dax?
Hey, what's going on? I didn't know how. I didn't see online. I didn't see Alex.
Well, the problem is that I had to change my password, and it just pissed me off because I was all ready to log in. And it said, oh, no, we got to confirm that it's you. So then I had to log into an email account. Oh, here's the code. Punch the code in. Okay. Oh, for your security, change your password. Oh, okay. Let me change your password. Oh, sorry, you used that one too soon. You've used that one in the last 2 years.
I did that.
You got to add a special character. Nope, not that character. Try another one. It's like, you know what, you fuck. I want to throw it across the room. But anyway,
they don't allow the middle finger as the character anymore. So. Yeah,
jeez, it just got me going. But last night, Demetrius Andrade beat Leon Williams. It was a fight, I think, in my opinion, Dax, that showed us a little more aggressiveness from Demetrius Andrade, but he's lacking something. I don't know what it is. I don't know. What was your thoughts on the fight?
Oh, that was terrible, huh?
Well,
I mean, don't get me. I mean, look, Williams is a tough guy. Make no mistake, but I mean, really now, Demetrius Andrade for a long time has been talking about how nobody wants to, and we have on the show several times over the years said, Demetrius Andrade is one of the best middleweights in the world, and why isn't he in there with the top mix? And a lot of people have asked, with these questions. But, my point is that Demetrius Andrade at one point in time was in a horrible, horrible contract. And I remember going and covering one of his fights. I think it was up, not at the Mohegan Sun, it was at, Mohegan Sun. And that's the same day that Floyd Mayweather fought Miguel Cotto. And he goes in there and he blasts out a guy named Rudy Cisneros. And if you go back, you can pull up the footage somewhere on YouTube where wasn't really all that impressed. And this corner asked me, why not? I said, well, let's see what happens when he faces a top name. And they said, well, they don't want to pay him the money he's worth. When they want to come out of their pocket, that's when they'll start facing big names. And that was 2012. And since then, really, what has Demetrius Andrade done that would warrant you to say he belongs in with the top names?
Well, that's my point. I don't know. I mean, they kept talking about Triple G last night. Triple G's at the end of his career. I don't even know why he's still fighting, to be honest with you. Yeah, he's got the IBF title, but who could Demetrius Andrade fight? I mean, I would like to see him fight Jamal Charlo, because I think Charlo's a fraud. But Jamie Mugaya, Chris Eubank Jr., I mean, those are better fights than Triple G. Triple G, I know, is a money fight, and I think Triple G, even at this advanced age, beats Andrade. But it's just so the division has become weak. It really has. I mean, Canelo's out of it, even though he's still ranked by the WBC. I don't know. Maybe Murata, Ryota Murata. What do you think?
Well, Murata, that Eddie Hearn last night, did you catch him final comments?
No.
About Triple G, the post-fight interview where he's saying, because Triple G and Murata are supposed to fight at the end of this year on DAZN. And Eddie Hearn comes out with a comment, I'm paraphrasing, something to the point where he says, well, Triple G is scheduled to fight Murata in December. Triple G should be sitting there and asking DAZN for a fight with Demetrius Andrade now. Okay, I agree that Triple G, I'm not sure when his birthday is, but by time he fights Murata, he will be 40 years old. The inactivity at this age, especially, is detrimental. And at any point in time, overnight, you can age in boxing 20 years compared to the average person's 1. So who knows what could happen against Murata? And then they will use this angle saying, well, Andrade is too big of a risk. Yet Golovkin, when he was 33, nobody was calling Golovkin out. People who were bashing Golovkin, Bill, remember, for fighting all the guys that the other guys supposedly weren't fighting because they hadn't reached the level to earn a fight with them. So Triple G goes and he's murdering that division, and he was bashed for not fighting the top names, but the top names want him now that he looks vulnerable and he's not so detrimental to your health.
No, I agree with that. And the thing is, the other issue we learned about Triple G throughout his career, aging or not, he needed to stay active. So not only is he fighting Father Time, he's fighting inactivity. So, I'm with you. I don't think we need to see any more Triple G. I mean,
a win over Triple G, Bill, looks great on the resume since Canelo's the only guy that beat him in such a close fight. The only problem is fans today, whether or not they're social media fans or whether or not they're, fans that only watch every now and then, they're not really overly familiar with BoxRec, but they know what BoxRec is. They're going to look on there and see a win over a Triple G, who's only lost to Canelo, and that's going to look great on the resume of Andrade. But BoxRec doesn't put on there that Triple G actually flew to the fight on discount tickets with his AARP card.
Right. No, right. I hear you. Hey, one thing I wanted to ask you, maybe it was just me, but it seemed to me that the referee in the Demetrius Andrade-Leon Williams fight was favoring Demetrius a little bit. He kept yelling at Williams. I thought Demetrius Andrade, with the exception of the times that Williams was hurt, I thought Andrade was holding more than Williams. What do you think?
Oh, I don't understand. Andrade, technically, I've seen a lot of people complaining on Twitter about that, saying, and not that anybody was given the inclination that Andrade holding was keeping him knocked out or anything. It was just that excessive holding. Very much reminded me of Ricky Hatton at welterweight, where it was 1-2 and hold. And no, there was no reason why Roberto Ramirez should have allowed that. You know what I'm thinking to myself in that fight is, if Liam Williams is giving Demetrius Andrade such a hard time by being such a tough guy and just pushing forward, I don't know if Demetrius Andrade would actually beat Sergey Derevyanchenko.
Well, there's some. Demetrius Andrade is I don't know. He needs a dance partner, and he's starting to age of fighting nobodies.
He definitely did not look very sharp. But I mean, he just goes and gets by in his career lately.
But he was a little more. I hate to use the word exciting when you're talking about Boo Boo Andrade, because he's just not an exciting fighter. But based on what we're used to seeing with him, he was a little more exciting yesterday. But speaking of exciting fights, we didn't get a chance to do a show, but last week, Joe Smith Jr. won the vacant WBO light heavyweight title with a majority decision over Maxim Vlasov, which I thought was an exciting fight. I mean, edgiest seat for 12 rounds. I wouldn't have been upset with any decision, whether it went to Vlasov, Smith, or even a draw. What was your thoughts on that one?
Joe Smith Jr. is a guy that you have to like. When I say have to like, I mean he's the genuine blue-collar guy. Yeah. Joe Smith Jr. is a fighter where I remember being at the ballroom in Manhattan at the, what they was billed as Last Dance at the ballroom. That was just, when the Roseland Ballroom had closed down, where Louis Bella had thrown many of his Broadway boxing cards. And he was fighting, I believe that was before, he was fighting Otis Griffin. And fans were actually walking out during the fight. By the fourth round, the place was pretty much empty. And now Joe Smith Jr., he gets some good wins. He knocks Bernard Hopkins out of the ring. Everybody chalks it up as, well, okay, he beat a very old Bernard Hopkins, especially because of that one-sided loss to Sullivan Barrera. And then Dimitri Bivol, other than that one punch where Bivol thought the bell had rang, Joe Smith Jr. had caught him behind the ear. He hadn't done much. He takes a little bit of time off. He comes back with a great jab. He outboxes Jesse Hart with that jab. He knocks out a former world champion. And then in the Vlasov fight, I really thought he was going to overpower Vlasov, but the awkwardness really bothered Joe Smith, and you could see that at times where he did what he did he did exactly what lost him the Sullivan Barrera and Dimitri Bivol fights, and that's where he shelled up on the rope. So I don't know. My point to that is, Joe Smith kind of regressed at certain times in that fight, and I'm happy he won a world title. I would like to see Joe Smith not abandon his team, but I would like his team to actually bring in somebody else that can help Joe Smith remain composed and fight and not shell up on the ropes when these guys are letting their hands go. Because Vlasov wasn't really hurting him. He was confusing him.
Well, Vlasov was landing a lot of punches, but he didn't have much towards the end of the fight, especially. He didn't seem to have much pop on him.
Yeah, no, and Vlasov's not a big puncher in general. He's just an awkward, herky-jerky guy, which can make anybody look bad. My point is that, Joe Smith, even though he wasn't getting hurt, he shells up on them ropes, and that's concerning when he goes in there against some of these bigger, some of these more experienced names on the next level, because he's now the hunted. Joe Smith Jr. is no longer the hunter, and he can't shell up on the ropes like that. I believe Joe Smith Jr. has the power to knock out anybody with a single blow. We know this. He's strong. But in terms of going out there in an elite fight against one of these other champions, in this case you'd want to say an Artur Beterbiev, who Joe Smith Jr. and Artur Beterbiev, if they stood and they slugged it out, I'm telling you, whoever lands that first really big punch is going to win. But Joe Smith Jr., if he shelled up on the ropes like that, he'd be easy work for Artur.
Yeah. Would you like to see a rematch? Because I know that I would.
Yeah, I'd like to see a rematch. I definitely would. The fight, in my opinion, could have went to Vlasov. There was a lot of people who thought it should have went to Vlasov. It was one of those fights where 2 points either way was okay with me. I'm happy Joe Smith got the win. I just want to see Joe Smith improve now. Get a couple soft title defenses against guys that are a little bit versatile, work on a few things, and then Joe Smith Jr. go in there and get himself a big money fight, because the guy, he deserves it. Joe Smith Jr. is generally what boxing is about.
Well, that's the story.
Making a better life for yourself. Joe Smith Jr. has gotten himself into a position he can get a big payday where he can retire.
Well, that's what we hope. Who do you like? What about a Dmitry Bivol fight?
No, Dmitry Bivol, again, Joe Smith Jr. has the power to knock out anybody, but Dmitry Bivol just baffles, guys. Dmitry Bivol is that good. And we're going to find out exactly what Dmitry Bivol might have lost in less than 2 weeks away, because Dmitry Bivol hasn't been in the ring since 2019. But, Dmitry Bivol, when he's on point, is as good as anybody in the game.
Yeah, but we also have talked on this show several times that Bivol would be effective at 168, and there's a guy named Canelo Alvarez at 168 that I would love to see those two fight. To me, that would be an entertaining fight, and it would be a challenging fight for Canelo. He seems to not be challenged lately.
Well, as much as people hate to say it, Canelo is just that good.
No, I agree.
It's plain and simple. Bill, I remember coming on the show after we did a post fight for Canelo, or it might have been grouped in with another event that went on that night. And I remember because it was one of these 1 o'clock in the morning shows. But remember when Canelo had fought Shane Mosley, and I remember Shane Mosley talking about how hard he hits, and I remember telling you about another Canelo fight that I had went to, where when Canelo had fought the Riverside Rocky when I was ringside, and you can hear those body punches. Yep, Canelo was raw, and now what we have here in Canelo is a guy that looked practically unbeatable.
Yeah, it was interesting to see his comments about Mayweather recently, where he said, well, if I fought him now, I'd destroy him. And he admitted that he fought him a little early. His ego got with it. He was invincible. He didn't know the sport, but he also gave credit to Floyd in a sense, because he said that he learned a lot from that fight, and he mentally vowed to himself and to his team that he would never lose again. And you can make the argument that Canelo has challenged himself. I never believe, and you know this more than anyone, I've never believed that Floyd Mayweather ever really challenged himself. And as a result, we never got to see the best Floyd. We got to see Floyd fight fighters he knew he was going to win. And that's why he fought Canelo when he did. I think Floyd did recognize the talent in Canelo, and he also recognized that he better fight him now because he'd never stand a chance. He would never stand a chance with him in the ring now. Not that you would expect Floyd to come out of retirement at 40-plus years old and fight a guy like Canelo now. But it is true. I do think that Canelo would destroy Floyd now, and if it was the same Canelo mindset now, would have destroyed him back then. What's your thoughts?
Well, Canelo doesn't get hit very clean. Now, my only thought would be, could Canelo get Floyd to come off the ropes and actually come after him?
You see now, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's where Canelo has improved. Canelo, I don't think Floyd would be successful with his little, hiding and shoulder roll and running and all of that. Canelo has learned to cut the ring off, and he's learned to work the body to his advantage, where I think he would stop Floyd easily. I don't even think it would be a challenging fight. Should Floyd have the you-know-whats to come out of retirement to fight this guy, which he's never indicated that he was going to come out of retirement, just a dream matchup. He doesn't stand a chance with Canelo. Not a chance.
No, not at this age, and Floyd has nothing to prove by fighting Canelo. But this version of Canelo is definitely on another level. He, at that point in time, he had some fights with lower level guys. I think it was Gomez, former welterweight champion Kermit Citron, Mosley, like I mentioned. I think he had fought actually Lovemore Endow, and Baltimore, but those were, I believe, in Mexico. Canelo's a guy that learned on the job, and look what the result is here now. We have the best fighter in the world, hands down. I don't care what anybody says. It's just Canelo is that good, and to sit there and talk more about it is just being a cheerleader. So all I can say is 363, 17-4 with 256 knockouts is the resume of his last 11 opponents. 10 of them world champions. He is only the second 3-division simultaneous world champion, and the first simultaneous lineal champion in 2 divisions in the history of boxing. That speaks for itself.
No doubt.
And Canelo is doing this against the very top names. He hasn't been picking out the weakest of champions.
Absolutely not. And that's what I love about the guy. But 2 more things I want to get your thoughts on. One, the WBC announced a 115-pound tournament that will have 4 fighters, the top 4 fighters in that weight class. Roman Gonzalez against Juan Francisco Estrada, the 3rd fight. The first 2 were great. And then Surascat Surarungzaval, which I know I just murdered his name, against Carlos Cudras. Then the 2 winners facing each other. What's your thoughts on this tournament?
No, and I love all those fighters, whether or not Rungvisai, I love Cudras, Gonzalez, huge fan of Estrada, but they've already done it before, and now that Roman Gonzalez, he looked very good against Juan Francisco Estrada. If he fought Rungvisai 100 times, 97 times, the outcome comes out the same, in my opinion, in favor of Rungvisai. He just happens to have Gonzalez's number. And Cudras, I don't know. Cudras, when you look at the last fight he had with Juan Francisco Estrada, he's not the same fighter that he was when he fought Roman Gonzalez the first time. And Roman Gonzalez is a guy that I would love to see go out with a few more wins and not against these top names. Unfortunately for him, and blame boxing for this, Bill, and their lack of promotion and interest of those smaller weights, Roman Gonzalez that's a poor choice of words. Roman Gonzalez was forced to waste the best parts of his career fighting in Central America, whether or not it was home country of Nicaragua, whether or not it was unknown places in Mexico, against guys that nobody's ever even heard of before. And now Roman Gonzalez, being 33 at 115 pounds, is like a welterweight being 50. The
thing I do like about this tournament is I think it's a way, and I don't disagree with you about anything you said. They're all, with the exception of in Francisco Estrada, they're all have seen better days, really, even Rungvisai as well. I mean, he's been in some wars and stuff. But I think it's a way that, you know, you look at it and you say, okay, WBC, you know, they're going to, you know, get sanctioning fees for all these fights. So, you know they're guaranteed at least 3 big sanctioning fees. But I think the other part of the equation is big paydays for these guys. You know, the one thing that we don't talk about as much as we should, or we do, but I mean boxing, is that these little guys that are so action-packed and you know, pay the price, their purses are generally lower than any other weight class. And I think this type of tournament, that it's billed as a tournament, would give them all an opportunity to make some paydays. And just like you said with Roman Gonzalez, a third fight with Juan Francisco Estrada would probably net him the biggest paycheck he's gotten to date. And I think for that reason, they deserve to do it. That's the way I looked at this. And at the end, you know that the mindset of all 4 of these guys is to kill or be killed. So you know that you're going to get good fights.
No, absolutely. There's never been a boring fight
with any of those
guys.
Right.
If you'd really like to do something special, is make sure you got everybody involved in this tournament, including, you know, the pretty boy, the IBF super flyweight champion, one that nobody really talks about because he's, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's promotion, I don't know if there is some sort of issue that he can't come and fight in the States, but outside his last fight, and I'm talking about Yerwin Cajas, you know, the IBF champion, you know, who hasn't had a loss since 2012, and see all these guys go in there, have a really great tournament, get these paydays that you're talking about, and then all of them should start kind of walking away from the sport. They've maxed out in weight, and a lot of these younger fighters that are coming up in these divisions are pretty dangerous. I mean, have you looked at the ratings for, you know, flyweight? Super flyweight, you know, these smaller, younger guys, you know, who are going to move up, give another few fights over at flyweight, and Julio Cesar Martinez is going to move up. You're going to get, you know, the Wonder Boy is going to move up. Nakatani is going to move up. You know, these guys are in their early 20s, and what would end up happening, in my opinion, is these guys that we're speaking about now would just end up being names on the resume.
Well, you know, you're right about Julio Cesar Martinez. I mean, he's one of those guys that we're going to be looking at. I just think that it's a way. I just think it's blatant with the WBC, given because these guys are at the end of it, all of them, even Estrada, and I just it would give them a deserving larger payday. You know, because you're right, the young guns are going to come up in that division, and these guys are going to have. All of them are going to have trouble against the names you mentioned. But
speaking of young guns, last night, 2 of the biggest prospects in the sport lost close fights.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's the way fighters are brought up today. It's just, don't even get me started. You can't, just because they're undefeated doesn't mean they're a good fighter, you know, and that's what I can't stand with a lot of the fan bases today. But my last question I have for you is, you know, we're all talking and hoping that the Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury fight actually happens this weekend. I guess they're going to either make a decision or they're getting the final offers on the table. Do you think this fight's going to happen this year? I mean, we're being promised not 1 but 2 fights against these guys this year. It's been a while since Fury's fought. do you think something is a wrench is going to be thrown in where this fight gets delayed, or do you think it will happen?
I think it'll happen. Everything's starting to open back up worldwide. We're starting to see fans in venues. Now, fans are literally clamoring to go to live gates. We got some venues. I think the biggest attendance we've had so far since the return was the Canelo versus Yildirim fight.
In Texas, right?
Yeah, and that's a AT&T Stadium. I think they had less than 10,000 people, but remember, that holds 90,000 people.
Yeah, I thought they had 15.
Right now, fans are dying to go to a big fight. And Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua would be huge, not only because of their popularity, but because it's for all the marbles at heavyweight. So there is no reason why that fight wouldn't happen. Well, even in win, lose, or draw, there's a lot of money to be made there for everybody.
They're talking about the Middle East has got the most money on the table. But it would suck to have that fight outside of England. It should be in England. I mean, I would love to have it here in the States, but I would also.
Do they have a venue?
They have it.
What venue they have there?
Well, where in Dubai?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dubai and Saudi Arabia. There's all offers on the table, as well as Russia and the U.S. and the U.K. But I think it's going to boil down to, even that things are opening up, I'm not sure that full venues where you can have a 90,000 people arena filled, I don't know if that'll happen this year. I wish it does. I would pray that it does. I don't see it. Therefore, the site fee is the way that they're going to be forced to go, and that's going to end up in the Middle East. That's what I think. But we'll see.
I'd like to see them both get a fight, more or less a showcase fight, just to kind of get, there's already a lot of interest in that fight, but I'm just saying, just so neither one of them can say that they're lazy, even though, not lazy, I'm saying rusty, rather. I know Anthony Joshua did just fight not too long ago against Kubrat Pulev, but let him get in one more fight by the summertime. Let Tyson Fury get in there, and this way, win, lose, or draw, nobody can sit there and say, well, I haven't been in the ring enough. We don't have to hear any excuses about COVID and a pandemic. Not saying either one of them will make such an excuse, but that's the go-to excuse right now. And then I would love to see Wembley Stadium, 90,000 fans worldwide on DAZN. This would be huge for boxing, and it would literally just bring the heavyweight division back to where it belongs, on top, unquestionably. And the only other thing more prestigious than the heavyweight world champion, meaning, and again, I stress, the heavyweight world champion, is the pound-for-pound king.
Well, allegedly, there's a 2-fight deal that's been signed. The divvying up of the coin has been agreed upon. The first fight, it's a 50-50 split. Second fight is a 60-40. So to have a build-up fight, a showcase fight prior to, really doesn't do anything for this fight. As a matter of fact, I think the reasons you gave to have it would be a good reason for the build-up for a rematch, regardless of if the first fight is a one-sided fight. If somebody gets blown out in a fight, then all those same excuses you're talking about are going to come out, and they're going to look forward to that second fight. So I think it is time to have the fight. I think boxing needs this fight, Dax, because we've been, especially the whole new generation of fans, they don't know any better. They don't know anything different than the BS marination of fights, the BS of the mandatory that comes in out of left field, the BS from all the sanctioning bodies and all the BS that goes on with that. Man, there's a lot of BSing going on. But, the truth of the matter is this could be an opportunity where once and for all, you got the top 2 heavyweights, because let's face it, Deontay Wilder's not in the discussion anymore. Mentally, physically, you haven't even heard anything. For all I know, he's playing pool somewhere. But the heavyweight division consists of these two guys right now. That's where the spotlight is on, and they got to get it on.
And we need one heavyweight champion.
At least for a little while.
And hopefully we can get some new heavyweight talent coming in. There are some up-and-coming guys, but the problem with the heavyweight division, and I shouldn't say a problem because what we love in heavyweight champions is dominance, and take away Vitaly Klitschko, the last two heavyweight champions, not belt holders, mind you, heavyweight champions, is Vladimir and Lennox. Vladimir, for that decade, was so dominant that people lost interest in the heavyweight division. You automatically just assumed he was going to win, and Lennox retired in, I believe, 2003, so 18 years ago. And, right now the heavyweight division needs a lot of activity and needs a lot of attention if it's going to get brought to its glory days again. Or what we need to do is we need to have ourselves a genuine, solidified, unquestionable, undisputed Bridgerweight champion.
No, there's no question. I agree with that 100%. And I think it boils down to the sanctioning bodies.
No, I'm sorry, Bill. I had a communication problem here. I thought you said you agreed we need an undisputed champion.
No, I do agree. But here's the problem. What will happen is the Floyd Mayweather Kool-Aid. So in other words, let's say it happens. Let's say you get a unified champion, right? You got one guy, one champion, heavyweight, the world champion. He's got all the belts. Then all of a sudden, what's going to happen is the sanctioning bodies are going to start, well, your mandatory is this guy, and your mandatory is that if you don't fight this guy over that guy, you're going to get stripped of your belt. And then that's when the Mayweather Kool-Aid comes out, where the champion will pick the least talented fighter and defend that one and let the sanctioning bodies strip. The sanctioning bodies are at fault. They're the ones that should be working together. And you've said on this show many times, listen, they're all in a position to maintain their money. If they all play nice and systematically go through the mandatories, they're all going to get sanctioning fees as long as they all sanction the same fights. The problem is that the way the sanctioning organizations
their sanctioning fee won't be as much if they sanctioned it together because they get a percentage of those purses.
I know, but the point is that they would be on that ride. And the thing is that the problem that you have with the sanctioning bodies now is number one contender in one organization may not be in the top 10 of the other, which is ridiculous. But that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother story. But anyway, I want to let the cat out of the bag. Dax is going to be producing some short videos / shows or whatever. So keep an eye out for that on our YouTube channel. We're working on that. And among what you're going to be doing, I hope you get some live stuff from the young kids you've been working with, Dax, because I think to sprinkle in some kids working out, sparring or whatever might be advantageous to some other young fans out there.
Look, right now, I am not too popular with USA Boxing.
Well, you're not popular with many people.
This tournament that took place, what USA Boxing did and how they manipulated and changed their rankings around, a lot of their top names did not get where they were supposed to. A lot of guys were just clearly robbed because they were fighting very much like the pros with nobody in attendance but other than the officials. I believe there might have been a few fans, but a lot of guys were literally robbed just due to popularity. And, but out of the gym that I'm associated with, Newburgh Hookalik, they produced 4 female national champions, Kimberly, Jocelyn, and Natalie Zempotekl, and KK, she is the national champion. So all the females are doing great. I'm definitely would love to bring more attention to the amateur scene on our networks. Well,
hopefully we can look towards that. In the very near future, we'll get that ball rolling pretty quickly.
But they hate me so much that literally, Bill, I'm being sent direct messages on Twitter, on Facebook by USA Boxing officials asking me to be a little bit nicer when talking about them.
Yeah, well, social media is out of hand. They shouldn't be. Everybody's, you and I have talked about this. You notice how many tough guys there are out there on social media. Nobody says anything to anybody's face anymore.
Members of the executive board, Bill.
Same thing. Same
or
thing.
Sending me messages on Facebook.
Yeah, that's great. That's why you're on Facebook for our accounts and you're on Twitter for our accounts because you can handle. I get so pissed off. I can't even deal with having to change passwords. So.
Feelings get hurt when the head of our organization is a corrupt cop. A corrupt cop.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's no different than the pros. It's no different than the pros, and we had that in the pros many times. So, and we still do. So.
This is true.
Dax, look forward to next week, brother.
All right, have a good day, everybody.
All right, that's my man Dax Khan. Keep up to date with him. He controls the Billy C Boxing website, so make sure you tune into that. We're going to be getting Dax. I'm sorry. We just had Dax. We're going to be getting Alex Papali on the phone here in a second. But first, I got to remind everybody, get a copy of my book, man. Tom Molino, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. And I tell you, my man Alex and Dax both have cameos in the book. It's a quick read, man, and we are working very hard to bring it to the screen, and we're getting closer and closer. These things take time. Like aging. It takes, not enough time. But anyway, joining me right now, Boo Boo himself, not to be confused with looking at some picnic baskets. We got Alex Papali joining us, and Alex, you're wasting away to nothing, man. You're looking great. Not everyone can see your shot, but kudos to you, brother.
Thanks, man. I thought you were going to say poo-poo. Here's poo-poo.
Well, let me ask you. I feel guilty every time I talk negatively about Dimitri Sanjay because he's a New England guy, and I know that you were a big fan of his for a while, and so was I. There's just something about him, dude. I mean, yesterday you could make the argument that it was his most exciting fight that he was in, that he engaged. He stayed on the offensive for most of the fight. It's just like, nah, it's just. And how about the corner? The corner's telling him, I almost called you because the corner's going like this. His father said right. You know what I mean, right? You understand what I'm saying, right? Right? Like what he's saying. So his comments was you gotta hit him with the left, right? And then you gotta pivot to your left, but you know what I mean, right? And then like he was saying all of this stuff, and I'm going, you're confusing the shit out of him right now. Do you mean a right or do you mean a left? Or are you just saying okay? I don't know, man. Did you notice that or no?
That's pretty funny. Yeah, it's like somebody in that corner needed a thesaurus. What's another word for right?
Yeah, I know.
Correct. Affirmative.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Would have been good. But anyway, what was your thought of the performance in general?
I agree with you that it was one of his definitely more exciting fights throughout, and I think part of that has to be given, part of the credit has to be given to Liam Williams, because I think that's sort of what happens when you have an aggressive guy, aggressive sort of puncher versus a counter-punching stylist. Is it can make for a good fight because the pressuring punching guy will keep coming forward and force the counter-puncher to keep working. And kind of like we saw in what I think was Mayweather's best fight in the sort of career, and that was the first Maidana fight, is when a counterpuncher has a guy who just is relentless in coming after him, it makes for good fights. And I think that's what we saw last night. And credit to Demetrius Andrade, because he could have just moved more rather than engaging him. And so I think that it was more fun to watch than a lot of his fights, because he maintained throughout, because a lot of times he'll be really exciting for maybe 4 rounds and then sort of coasts.
Yep.
But last night I thought he was it was one of his better fights, and I thought, it is. I think that a fight with Golovkin or with Charlo could be interesting and fun, because much more Golovkin than Charlo. Golovkin will come right after him, and that could make for a fun fight.
Golovkin is done. He's too old. We don't need to see that. Charlo, I would love to see Andrade fight him, because both Charlos, in my opinion, are frauds. So we'd get a really good taste. The 2 fights that stick out for me would be Mugaya and Chris Eubank Jr. The reason why I like Mugaya against Demetrius is Mugaya takes there's not a punch he doesn't want to eat right on the face, And what I noticed, and it was so obvious. The announcing team, which wasn't the normal team, which really, really showed last night. Chris Algieri, he made history, but I don't want to hear him anymore as an announcer. But, they're going, Williams is starting to really withstand these punches. It's like leather. It's like he's getting tougher right around. No, I think it was the oomph was being removed from Demetrius's punches. That's what it was. It wasn't that he was handling them better. It was that they weren't hurting as much. And I think that it would be interesting to see if he couldn't take Mugaya out in a couple of rounds, which no one else has yet, to see how Mugaya would beat down Williams. Andrade, because make no mistake, Williams had him hurt a couple of times in that fight. If it wasn't for the referee helping him, Williams had less talent. He was fighting Demetrius Andrade, and he was fighting the referee in that fight. So, he didn't have a chance.
Yeah, the ref did seem questionable a few times. But Jaime Munguia, I think, would be, in terms of the physicality, that would be interesting, because he's one of those guys that by the time he rehydrated, I bet you he'd be, close to 170, if not over 170. That's a lot to have leaning on you. So it would tire Andrade out, and I wonder what the what the championship rounds of a fight like that would look like. I think that the things that happen is that Andrade was started with Williams, at least, would start landing just one punch at a time. There was a couple of times where he did stand there in the pocket and just rattle off. I think it was like maybe the start of the 10th round or something. There was one round where he rattled off like 4 shots in a row and then rolled out. And I think that Munguia will stand there and, I don't know. I think that I think Williams is better than Munguia, but I think Munguia has that physicality that could be a factor. But Andrade's movement is really clever, so I do think that he deserves. I couldn't hear most of what you and Dak said because the YouTube thing fell off. But I think he is in the right place in terms of ranking, in terms of one of the top 3 guys at middleweight, top 2 guys. But because if Canelo's not there, but yeah, I think that it's tiresome that we have there's like 2 or 3 guys at the top of a division. Let's see them fight, and then there'll be one. Or one champion that we could look at. And sometimes if it comes out to be a great fight that's close, well, you have to have another one. They've got to meet.
The win is weak. The division is weak. I did something that I think you'd be interested in. So I took the rankings for the 1950, 1960, 1970, 1980. Amazing to see these fighters. But in 1950, the middleweight champion was Jake LaMotta. Number 1 ranked, Sugar Ray Robinson. Number 2, Laurent Datheville. Number 3, Dave Sands. I don't know much about him. Number 4, Randy Turpin. Jimmy Bowe, number 5. Gene Harrison, number 6. Roy Barnes, number 7. Robert Villerman, who was the guy that Robinson ended up, I believe, winning his middleweight title from originally, the first time he won it, which was in Pennsylvania. Patty Young and Walter Cartier. That's 1950. When you go to 1960, now Paul Pender's the champ. Gene Fulmer, Gustav Schultz, Hank Casey, Joey Gardiello, Sugar Ray Robinson, Henry Hank, Gambria, Terry Downs, Don Fulmer, Dick Tiger. He's on his way up. That's 60. 1970, Carlos Monzon, Nino Benvediti, Emil Griffith, Luis Rodriguez, Carmelo Bassi, Frazier Scott, Juan Carlos Duran, Doyle Bard, Denny Moyer, Tom Boggs, Rafael Gutierrez. And in 1980, where, when you look at the middleweights through these decades, really, again, we've been talking about Marvin Hagler, but doesn't this put it in perspective when you're reading all those names from 1950, 60, and here 1980? Hagler's the champ. Alan Minter, number 1. Dwight Davidson, number 2. Vito Anafermo, number 3. Fluenzigo, Curtis Parker, number 5. Hampshire, number 6. Wilfred Scipion, number 7. Ronnie Harris, Frank Fletcher, Tony Simpson. I mean, these were strong divisions through all those decades, and now you look at the middleweight division, and we're talking about two guys, maybe 3. You can't put Canelo in that mix because he destroys them all. I would like more of a catchweight. Sean Porter, maybe a Keith Thurman, move up to 154. I don't think Demetrius has a problem going back to 154. That would be more interesting. The middleweight division's hurting right now, Alex.
I don't know. I mean, I think the Golovkin fight would be fun because, and you're right, I think Golovkin does not have a lot left in him, and I think that might be part of why it's more fun, is, as we know, as a guy gets longer in the tooth, he's willing to take more chances sometimes, and kind of because he has to. And I think that, so that fight could be interesting. I don't see the Charlo fight happening just because...
Charlo doesn't fight anybody.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like of all these guys, the guys who seem to be the least likely to sort of cross the street, as they say, are the PBC guys. Now, I'm sure, don't at me, bro, with examples of guys who've crossed the street, but I don't... you don't see it as much. At least, not that it comes to mind in the top echelon. So I don't know. And I think Golovkin and Andrade would be a fun fight. At some of these at one point, I'd love to go to a fight again. It'd be really nice. I do get my second vaccine tomorrow, Billy C. But now they say that I have the Pfizer one. They say I'm going to need a third.
Listen, I was all signed up to get mine, and I preferred the Johnson & Johnson one. Something told me not to. I didn't. Nothing. Obviously, all the negatives that you're hearing about that one is pretty much for younger females. But now you're hearing that they're going to need boosted, and their statistics are coming back. The people that have been with any of the vaccines are coming down with it, and they're getting it worse. I mean, they just don't know what they're throwing a ball against the wall and seeing where it bounces, and it's all part. Oh, you're gonna love this next line. I know we're gonna lose some viewers right now, but it's all part of the mass brainwashing techniques that they're doing right now. Fear is number one. We're all afraid to go out. Oh, and I love this CDC. Yeah, after you get vaccination, you only need to wear one mask. What? One mask? How many were we supposed to be wearing? Because remember he said you needed to wear 2. You need the one, and then you need the shield over that. But anyway, the one fight. Let's get back to boxing before
and that's the thing about what I've heard about those face shields is that if you don't have a mask on underneath, it's unless there's like spray of blood and like bodily fluids coming at you, they're useless because it's like, air can get right underneath. So essentially, that face shield is wearing you.
Hey, you know what's funny? You see all these mandatory. Okay, you want to? We're letting a little bit of audience in for boxing, right? And they pan the audience. How many actually have the face masks on? They all have them on their person, but they're all dropped down. Even the officials. I mean, some of the guys. Okay, the ring announcer, you can't have it on. But half the corner, some of them have it on, some of them have it around their neck. I mean, it's like, come on.
And that's one of the things, too, if you go to the movies now, is you have to wear, and same thing with restaurants, you have to wear the mask in. But then once you sit down, you can stuff food in your face hole. So, of course, you got to take the mask. So
yeah, there was a funny thing. The other day, somebody was like, oh, you want some jelly beans? And I had a mask on. So I'm like, oh, yeah. And I grabbed a handful of jelly beans and I fucking threw them at myself and forgot that I had the mask on. And needless to say, there was jelly beans all over the place. And, of course, everyone saw it, So it was like, like a bonehead move by Billy C. But anyway, one fight I would like to see in the middleweight division, Demetrius Andrade. And a lot of people are going to wonder why I'm throwing this name out there. But I think he's extremely underrated. Torino Johnson, I think, would give Demetrius Andrade a good fight, at least if he's on that day. I've seen good versions of Johnson and bad, but Torino Johnson is a name that, people may not remember or notice because nobody really wants to fight that cat. He's pretty good. He's a talented fighter.
Wasn't he the first guy who sort of exposed Curtis Stevens, who I thought deserved a decision over Stevens?
Yes, you remember that fight? That fight was unbelievable. And it just was like in the second to last round, and he comes off the ropes, and I thought it was a quick count. I don't know. He should have won that fight. Curtis, they waved off Curtis Johnson.
Oh, okay, it was stopped.
It was Johnson was beating the snot out of Stevens for the whole fight. And then he had him against the ropes. Stevens had him against the ropes, and they immediately jump in and wave it off. It was not fair because Johnson, he was hurt. But because he was beating him the whole fight, they should have given him a chance to at least come back. Anyway. A fight that took place last week that we didn't get a chance to talk about, I wanted to get your thoughts. I thought it was the anti-Demetrius Andrade type fight. Joe Smith Jr. and Maxim Vlasov fought an exciting fight for the vacant WBO light heavyweight title. What was your thoughts on that one?
I really enjoyed that fight. I thought it was really good. A lot of fun to watch. I really enjoyed Maxim Vlasov's just very bold style. He makes it look easy with his hands down, and that's a good example of sweet science because he's right there in front of you, but he's hard to hit, and he's making the fight because he's busy as hell. And I thought he won that fight. I didn't think that Smith won more than 4 rounds, but it was close. There's certainly been far more egregious decisions, and I think that as is typical Billy C, a lot of times when you're listening to the commentary, you're kind of hearing people push more than covering an event. And that's kind of what it felt like because, especially Joe Tessitore, to him it was one guy in there.
I know.
Joe Smith Jr.
The house guy.
Yeah, and that's always disappointing. I think, and I don't know, there's a part of me that thinks can't see through that or hear through that, but maybe they can. Maybe that's just my own.
Neither does expert people. Look, I have to remind you about the Hagler-Sugar Ray Leonard fight that we all watched with no sound, and people were shocked at their own scorecards. But the fight, I thought he fought a lot like Usyk. With the way he was fighting. I'm talking about Vlasov. With his boxing skill and punches in the face. And I've talked about this for years, how we all know what the scoring criteria is, but we don't have it in a specific order. So if you're a judge at ringside and you're watching that fight and you're scoring more emphasis on power punches, that would explain why Joe Smith Jr. won the fight. If you were scoring more on the amount of punches or percentage of punches that were landed, you would have had to give it to Vlasov. And that's why I was okay with any way that fight turned out. You know, Smith won it by a hair. I wouldn't have been upset if Vlasov won it by a hair, and I certainly wouldn't have been upset if the fight ended in a draw. To me, it was that close. But the boxing skill of Vlasov was clearly the dominant. And you're 100% right. It's unfortunate that we watch bias events like that with a house fighter get accolades. We saw it last night with Boo Boo Andrade. You know, with the referee. You know, you got an opponent coming in. Not only is the announcing team, favoring one fighter, but when you have officials, I mean, it's just, it's like you don't stand a chance. You need to win by knockout, and that's how the sport has become, in my opinion.
I think that that was one of the things that especially with Andrade, was that I think he was the one who, especially went on doing a lot of the initiating, at least a lot of the holding, and it seemed that it was still the referee was a little more hard on Williams rather than him. But and they were on neutral territory, right? Well, I mean, I guess they were in America, and one boxer is Welsh, the other is American, so maybe that's a factor. But I don't know. It wasn't like it was in Providence or something, so it was a little. But these things happen, and I do think that's one of the things that's so great about our sport, Billy C, is that I'm sure you remember the great Jack Blackburn. That was one of the things he said early to Joe Louis, was that, you're black, and it's going to be tough for you to get decisions, so let your right fist be the referee.
Right.
And I always love that.
Getting back to, I was amazed at the ring ratings for decades, and talk about the heavyweight division. And this is interesting because in 1950, the champion was Ezra Charles. Ezra Charles is almost a forgotten guy today, as talented as he was, and he really was a light heavyweight. But check out the top 10 guys. Joe Louis was number 1, all right? Lee Savold, number 2. Remember that name for a second. Joey Maxim, who was a light heavyweight, he was number 3. Clarence Henry, number 4. Bob Baker, another name in the heavyweight division, as well as light heavyweight. He's number 5. Rex Lane, another name that eye on. Number 6. Jersey Joe, number 7. Jack Gardner, number 8. Lee Uma, another name to keep an eye on. Number 9. And number 10, Rocky Marciano. The reason why I say keep an eye on those names, Lee Savold and Bob Baker, Rex Lane, Lee Uma, they were all opponents of Rocky Marciano that Marciano got criticized for fighting. They were all top 10 fighters. You know what I mean? At least in 1950. Right. So, and Jersey Joe, of course. I'm looking at that photo right across in the studio of the disfigured face of Jersey Joe from the Power. And then you move ahead to 1960. Floyd Patterson, number 1. Was the champion. Sonny Liston, number 1. Igmar Johansson, number 2. Eddie Machen, number 3. Zora Foley, number 4. Henry Cooper, number 5. Mike DeJohn, number 6. Robert Clareau, number 7. Alex Midoff, Dick Richardson, Joe Escon. Again, you see how the division developed. It's something we don't see. This is why I'm bringing it up. You go through, and nothing's different in 1970 and 1980, except talk about a stacked. I'll read this and I'll stop because I can keep going on and on. 1970 heavyweights, Alex. Joe Frazier's the champ. Ali's ranked number 1. George Foreman, number 2. Oscar Benavidez, number 3. Jerry Quarry, number 4. Mac Foster, number 5. Henry Cooper, number 6. George Chavallo, number 7. Sonny Liston on his comeback, number 8. And then Jose Abar Urtain and Jose Luis Garcia bring up 9 and 10. These are, to me, reason why we can say that the fighters were so much better back then, because they climbed up that ladder of the rankings, which they don't really do anymore. What they do now is all of a sudden a name will appear in the rankings and he becomes the mandatory, but he didn't climb the ladder. In those eras that I just shot out at you, you saw the climbing of a ladder by these future champs that were in the rankings, and it makes for better champions because they had to climb the ladder. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think what would be interesting is to take like the current middleweight division and look at maybe 2011 and see if that happened, or see if there's popped in, popped away. And I have a feeling you're right that it would be there probably would be a few names that popped in and went away, but that they're probably. Because 10 years ago, we're probably still talking about, maybe not Canelo yet, but I think Golovkin was still up there. But yeah, when you were reading the Hagler one, and I think this is the same thing with the heavyweights, especially Ali, look at Hagler and look at Ali's record later. Those guys that you mentioned in the top 10, Alex Mitaf, Oscar Bonavena, all those guys, Ali fought, Frazier fought. Same thing with Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Vito Antuofermo. Once he was the champion, he fought him a third time. Wilfred Scipion was in the top 10. He fought him. Fulgencio Obel Mejias, or Fulio Bell, as they shortened his name. Hagler stopped him twice. Tony Simpson, another one, was in the top 10 you mentioned. He has a KO over him. So yeah, I think that nobody can be responsible for the quality of the fighters who are there,
right,
in their era, but you are responsible for what you do against them. And like you said, if Marciano, he cleaned those guys out and laid waste to them, well, then that's it. You're the champion. Now, would it be nice if there was a better challenger for you? Yeah, but you're not responsible for that. You know, I mean, that's time. That's why guys move up. That's why guys move down.
Exactly.
Why guys come out of retirement.
Exactly.
You know, so.
It's. I mean, you can only be criticized for not fighting the top guys of your era, and that's why I'm so.
And I think that's why people will look back at the last. Now, granted, maybe this year you get a little bit of an asterisk because of the pandemic, but people will look back at this Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence crap and just be like, nah, that fight should have been made.
Well, it's the same
whatever
thing.
excuses about it, the fighters themselves, Tommy Hearns would have done everything he could to get the other guy in the ring. Would he take a smaller paycheck? Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
They cared. There was more pride. Look at Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather did not fight the top 10 guys of his divisions that he fought in throughout his career. He didn't. He cherry-picked. You talk about this is an interesting thing because when Mike Tyson rose to the top, the biggest knock on him was he never fought anybody. The heavyweight division sucked, right? Well, in 80, the heavyweight division was like this. Larry Holmes was the champion. Mike Weaver was number 1. Jerry Cooney number 2. Leon Spinks number 3. Michael Dokes number 4. Jerry Coetzee number 5. Marty Monroe, number 6. Trevor Berbick, number 7. Greg Page, number 8. Bernardo Mercado, number 9. And Kenny Norton at number 10. You could make the argument that Mike Tyson cleaned up the heavyweight division with whoever was available when he fought the heavyweight division, because he did clean it up. And you talk about welterweight, same era. Sugar Ray Leonard was the champion in the welterweight division. Tommy Hearns, number 1. Wilfred Benitez, number 2. Pepino Cueves, number 3. Roberto Duran, number 4. Randy Shields, number 5. Pete Ranazzi, number 6. Adolfo Verrett, number 7. Bergen Hansen, number 8. Louis Premier, number 9. And Clint Jackson, number 10. And then you could look at the junior middleweights and the junior welterweights and the middleweights of the time. They all ended up fighting each other. I mean, yeah, the 1980s was the last great era of boxing because it has never been the same since. And when you look at it in black and white and start thinking about the names and who they fought, and I just grabbed 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and you start looking at these divisions, and you see that they climbed those rungs of the ladder. That's what made them so good. That's what made them legitimate champions. And by the way, there were only 10 top 10 contenders, at least up until the 80s. The rest of these, there wasn't 4 sanctioning bodies with their own top 15 that you deal with now. So I talk about diluted. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. It's disheartening, but I think we still, it's amazing because the sport pushes forward, and we still get good fights, and there's still good matchups. And if you looked at Showtime's summer schedule, it's pretty exciting. There's some good matchups on there at 154 and 115. I think, and maybe this is a good segue because I think there's not a lot of movement at some of the very best mouth-watering matchups that we have, which would be Crawford Spence and Joshua Fury. And Joshua Fury is really frustrating because we basically suffered through, what was it, how many deadlines went this week?
Well, I was gonna get your thoughts on that. If you think it's gonna happen, because today is the final off for the
deadline on the deadline.
The deadline today's the deadline for the deadline. Okay. And they have many offers. That's all they keep saying. We have so many offers. We don't know which to choose from. My question is, I don't think it's the offers. We know that they're gonna have to if they can't have a live gate. They're going to have to go to the biggest dollar offer for the site fee. And that's going to end up being in the Middle East somewhere because they're going to throw the money around. DAZN will have it on TV and I guess ESPN as well. I think that's part of the deal. But will the fight really happen? I mean, they've said that they signed the deal, but they had 30 days to come up with it. Otherwise, the deal is null and void. I think that time is almost here. 2-fight deal sounded great on paper, Alex. 50-50 for the first fight. 60-40 goes to the winner of this for the second fight. The winner of the first fight gets 60 for their second fight. Dax was saying that he believed that they should both have a fight before the fight. I think that the way the contract is written, it leaves plenty of promotional tools to promote the second fight by using the fact that they didn't have a warm-up fight first in the first fight. Do you think it's going to happen this year?
I sure hope so. No, I don't have a lot of hope. If it does happen, I don't think it's going to happen this summer. I think it would be more like the fall, or at least America's fall, so like October or November. And that's the thing about this that I think is unfortunate is, in a way, you have, it's a regional squabble, right? This is 2 guys from the UK.
So let's have it in the Middle East.
I know. To me, that's the part that's the most disappointing, and I think that's the situation with the pandemic is there's no way to control that. So I do see... because it's a fight that needs to happen, but it's a fight that you don't want to happen without it being all that it could be.
Right.
And that means a packed arena.
Right.
In London.
Exactly. Because let's be real. There's no better fans really at a live gate than the Brits. I mean, they just make the fight. And not that I'm promoting drinking alcohol, but it definitely adds to it. Now, you go to the Middle East, they're not allowed to cheer, they're not allowed to clap, they're not allowed to drink, they're not allowed to do anything. They're lucky they're allowed to go watch it. And basically, they're trying to showcase their country, how I don't know how they are, how hospitable they are, how refined they are. But are they even boxing fans? I mean, how many historically? How many champions have come from the Middle East besides Amir Khan, who's really is a Brit, So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the part of it that would be, would be cool in the sense that you're getting a part of the world exposed to boxing that probably has not had, at least not live exposure. But certainly, especially the way the TV is now today, they certainly have been able to watch boxing. And I think this is not something new either when you think about it. This is maybe the way the world has changed. We've sort of seen many over the last 2 decades, I would say. We've gone past the sort of the post-American sort of super fight. There's been a lot of super fights that neither guy is American. But the thing that we've also seen is like everyday fans, John Q. Public, is sort of locked out of the actual live events because of pricing, because of just where something is. If you think about like Pacquiao Mayweather, I mean, you couldn't go to that fight if you were John Q. Public. You had to be pretty wealthy to get a hold of those tickets. So I think that's the kind of thing that's sort of unfortunate, is that the heavyweight championship of the world is always a spectacle as well as a sporting event. So that's what they'd be capitalizing if it is in Dubai or Saudi Arabia, is that people would show up. But yeah, it's not going to be the boxing junkie Neil Diamond singing, 0.2 blood alcohol level screaming fan that you would get at Wembley. I'm being a little.
Oh, you're being, and you. And you forgot the gorgeous women too, because they're all over the place, and that's all part of it. It's all part of it. Hey, Alex, but before I let you go, I wanted to read an email that I wanted to get your thoughts on. It was actually sent to me 2 weeks ago. We haven't done a show, and it's by my man Jordan out of the UK. He said, "Hey Billy C, I'm delighted that you guys are back doing your show." He said it's the first time I've been able to listen since the Pulev Anthony Joshua fight. He says, I have a quick question about boxing that took place this weekend in the UK. Now this was right after Povetkin and Dillian White had to fight. He says on the undercard of the Povetkin White, he says Chris Congo was fighting Michael McKinson. And regularly throughout the fight, they had an exchange of punches, and one of them would raise their arm with the commentators saying that they were letting the judges know that they landed shots and therefore won that exchange. Once one of them had raised the arm, the other one always raised their arms almost immediately by presumably saying that the other one was lying and they thought they had won that round. I couldn't help thinking, what a waste of time, just fight. I watch boxing regularly, both current and old fights, and I don't ever recall seeing this before, and certainly not at the regularity that each fighter was doing it. Is it something you've seen before? And it's just from my man Jordan out of the UK. When I read this email when he wrote it, I actually responded to him and told him that I've never seen that, ever. It sounds more like a amateur type of a move, but what's the point of raising the arm? Are the judges, if you have a set of judges that need you to tell them who won the round, you got the wrong judges. What's your thoughts on this email?
Oh, I agree with that, but I don't think I've ever seen that before. It does sound, especially if it was the prelim, maybe it was guys that were just recently turned pro, because it does very much sound like something like you're almost helping out the amateur judges.
Yeah, but in the UK, the referee is scoring those fights.
Oh, right. So that could be that. And then the reason why the other fighter must have kept doing it is because his opponent was doing it. Right. That's sort of what happens a lot of times in any kind of boxing match, and even in other sports too, is when you're in the midst of a competition, if one guy does something to you, you do it right back.
It's sort of like a I know you are, but what am I?
Yeah, that kind of a thing. So it could very well be that, because, you see that kind of thing. If I land a shot, and you shake your head, then you land a shot and I shake my head. So that kind of thing. I think that's probably what it was. But yeah, that is weird, and it is unnecessary and a waste of time. And I do think that, and that's one of those things, they must have been early in their career, because as you progress, you're going to realize what's the point. And that was one of the things that I thought was kudos to Andrade last night is you saw he was emotionless through most of that fight. And that's got to be tough for him because he's a very, I don't know if you saw his post-fight interview, but there was a clip where he was like singing or like mumbling a DMX song. It was like, that clip is just, I've seen it on Twitter a few times. But he never let Williams get into his head, and that's where a fighter wants to be. I think is English fighters tend to do better because you don't get caught up in. You can make a mistake when you get emotional.
No doubt. No doubt. Some fighters like to press the button, and one thing we know as fans. When somebody gets hit and they shake their head saying it didn't hurt them, it hurt them.
It usually means it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alex, look forward to next week, my man.
All right, Billy C. Take care.
All right, that's my main man, Alex Papali, giving us his thoughts. I didn't see that either. And neither did Leon Williams. He didn't see any of those uppercuts that Boo Boo was landing on a regular basis throughout that fight. But anyway, I got a couple of more emails to read. This one's from my man Jeff. As a matter of fact, I got back-to-back emails from Jeff 2 different days. He says, hey, Billy C., unfortunately, Frampton should have learned from Canelo versus Smith how to battle a much larger opponent. He never learned to adjust to his style. I couldn't believe he was trying to headhunt rather than work the body and the arms. He walked right into danger with no clue. I love the guy, and he's accomplished much, but he refused to keep learning. He never had a chance. No, and it's good that he's retired, Jeff. And Jeff went on to say, I watched Liam come up and was disappointed at his results against Smith. Figured he'd reach his peak. I heard he was fighting Demetrius Andrade, and I told every Brit fan not to be too hopeful versus Andrade, who's underrated and skillful with power. It's just a step too far. They told me to watch Williams since changing trainers and moving up in weight, and I must admit, I may have written him off a little too soon. He does look strong and even more quick, more quick-handed at this weight. His demolition of Scott was quite impressive, and Scott did give Andrade some hell for a few rounds. Never too old to learn. I still believe Andrade is a step up in competition, but quite possibly not the step too far I was quick to label. Can't wait for crowds to come back, especially for these English fighters who feed off their loyal fans. This is something Alex and I were just talking about. He said, we've had some excellent COVID-19 fights, but boxing, nothing can replace a raucous crowd. Thrilled that you guys are doing shows again, and it's even more thrilling to hear that Sal is doing well against his toughest opponent to date. Yes, it is, and we're hoping to get Sal to join us here very soon. As a matter of fact, I am going to reach out to him again this week and see if we can't coordinate something sooner than later. My final thoughts, Demetrius Andrade did put on one of his more exciting fights this past weekend over Leon Williams. He's just missing something. Apologize for being a little frustrated earlier with the password situation, but it is what it is. I just want to remind everybody to get a bottle or two of the Southern Gourmet Spice.com. Visit the website. You got Kenny Bear's classic barbecue rub, which I love. I put it on everything. Their all-purpose seasoned salt, and my new Cajun rub, which is my new favorite. And don't forget to get your copy of the Title Bout Championship computer game. You can get that right off our website, BillyCBoxing.com. And, of course, my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet. Get yourself a copy now. If you want a signed copy, just drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing. Or if you have anything else to say, drop me an email. I'll read it right here on the next show. Hey, don't forget, make sure you tune in next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.